All right, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the With CP podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined today by three folks who mean a whole lot to me and are an important part of the Common Power community, and have made a little bit of time to join this. We got Mr. Charles Malden, Ms. Celestia Hill, Mr. Luke Michener, and myself, David Domke. It's August 22nd. Today is the day. Today's the day that Kamala Harris is going to accept the nomination for the Democratic National Convention. Today is the day in 1964 when Fannie Lou Hamer gave her address to the Democratic National Convention about the importance of fairness and America being open and equal to all in politics. And today is the day that somebody brought me 24 chocolate chip cookies a couple hours ago too. So I'm doing great. All right. I'm on all of these fronts. And I want to start with, we all going to want to start with a clip from Tim Walz's address last night at the Democratic National Convention. It's a 1 minute long clip. I'm going to play it, and then we're going to start with that. It's a clip that I will never, ever forget in the political space.
But it was those players and my students who inspired me to run for Congress. They saw in me what I had hoped to instill in them, a commitment to the common good, an understanding that we're all in this together, and the belief that a single person can make a real difference for their neighbors. So there I was, a 40-something high school teacher with little kids, zero political experience, and no money, running in a deep red district. But you know what? Never underestimate a public school teacher. Never. But
I'm pretty sure he's describing you, Luke. I'm not sure in terms of age and no money and all of that. Okay. So
yeah, it sounds about right.
Celestia Hill, you are a great colleague here at Common Power. Give us a quick introduction, where you live in and what's your connection to teaching?
Yeah, so I'm a senior associate with Common Power, and I currently live in Selma, Alabama. I came through the Common Power pipeline of the Educator Learning Tour, which I am deeply ingrained, and I love teachers. I am a former teacher. I'm a certified teacher. I'm an elementary and middle school special ed certified teacher, and I just have the ruling passion that teachers set the standard for what we do and how we set this nation forward. And do you want me to go a little bit?
Keep going. Yeah.
Keep going. Okay. I was deeply moved by that part of the clip because never underestimating a teacher is such a powerful statement. And I love that because teachers are what create the rest of the careers. It creates the citizens that we have in this nation. And it's inspiring that he says it on the platform to know that we will have a teacher we are working so hard to get a teacher into the office, because what better position for a teacher than to be a vice president, if not president? I think that is the definition of how we educate our students to be the citizens that they are, but how we are the definition of who America is too, because we teach the students, and we bring them up in this kind of way that never estimating a public school teacher, because we help mold the students and the youth of our country. And I think it's just so powerful.
What is one trait that you think makes a great teacher?
Patience. You have to have patience to be a teacher, because you're dealing with students that you don't know where they come from. You don't know their home situation. You don't know how their day was going. And teachers, the one thing I would say, patience and then kindness, because that's how we show up for our students each day. We show up seeing who they are. We show up being that kind face, being that one person that could change their day of just being ourselves. But teachers have the patience of the world. That's what people often define me as. So I know that I like representing a teacher, because teachers have the patience, they have the kindness. They're amazing.
Yeah, you are those, Celestia. You really are. Luke Michener, Uh, Tell us who you are and what your connection is to teaching.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on, and especially with Celestria and Mr. Charles. It's good to be with you all. My name is Luke Mitchner. I'm a social studies teacher in Bellevue, Washington. Been teaching this will be my 19th school year coming up. And I just, in the last month or so, started a part-time position with the Institute for Common Power as an education specialist there. So be kind of splitting my time between those two roles starting in the fall here, and just thrilled to be a part of what the Institute is building and under Dr. Scott's leadership. Yeah, it's been a really powerful experience so far, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it further. Um, I was deeply moved by Governor Walz's speech last night. I was texting with David while he was giving the speech. I think I said I love Tim Walz as he was talking. Yeah, I think Common Power, the organization, exists to preserve democracy. Really, we are about protecting voting rights and enfranchising people, and democratic values at their core. And what's more democratic than a public education system? A system that educates all children equally and fairly and justly. And I think Tim Walz embodies that. And I think his remarks last night are a reminder of the value of public education. They're a reminder of the role that an educator can play in a child's life. And I think it's a stark contrast to the opposition. The Project 2025 calls for the taking apart the Department of Education, for example, and so the folks who know how powerful public education is on the other side are trying to destroy it because of what it means to democracy. It is the antithesis of far right movements, and so I think it's something profound to put an educator at the top of the ticket next to Vice President Harris, and really, really important statement by the Democrats. And I think they picked a great teacher too. He just seems like someone, like Celestria said, who comes from this place of kindness and patience and understanding, these qualities that you want in a leader, open-mindedness and empathy. And I think his background as a public school teacher is a really powerful move for the Democrats to make.
All right, thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Charles Malden, you're a champion for Common Power in so many ways for us, and we're honored to have you. You were part of the Selma movement in the 1960s. You were a leader, a youth leader for them. You were sixth in line on Bloody Sunday, the incredible, nation-changing, democracy-defining moment in their time. And you've been an activist and a community leader for your entire life. You bring your wisdom to us all the time. What's your take on Tim Walz, educator, and educators generally, sir?
I was thinking about my favorite teacher. I told Luke that he's one of my favorite teachers. But let me tell you something about my favorite teacher. I had just a normal association with some very important teachers as I was growing up. And there's one particular teacher that was my favorite teacher. Her name was Mrs. Parrish. As a matter of fact, I spoke with her daughter yesterday, and her second daughter is a person who actually moderates our breakfast each year to show that there's a continuing contribution from her family. But the reason she's my favorite teacher is that she was my homeroom teacher in about 7th grade. And I remember one of the things that stands out in my mind about the Selma movement is that the teachers, first of all, had a very important march, and they were the heroes of our community. They were the top earners of our community. And as unjust as they were paid and treated, they were still the top of the economic ladder. So for them to take a position on anything was monumental in terms of affecting us. They were our heroes. And the point I want to make about Mrs. Parrish is that I'll never forget, Luke, that just before the march to Bloody Sunday, Mrs. Parrish, my teacher, now I'm in the 11th grade. She was my 7th grade homeroom teacher. One of my favorite teachers came to me and said, Charles, I'm going to let my daughters march. Now, teachers were, they had everything to lose. The superintendent was a dictator. They trembled in their boots when he just showed up. As a matter of fact, this same superintendent actually slapped our principal. That's how intimidating he was. But Mrs. Parrish came to me just before the Selma march. She said, Charles, I'm going to let Nadine and Phyllis march, but please take care of them. And for Luke, for a teacher to come to a student and say something like that to somebody that you looked up to was one of the most humbling experiences in my life. I didn't think very much of that. Like we went day to day and we didn't think of important events, and we didn't put that in. I didn't put that in a special place. But it turns out that and her oldest daughter, Phyllis, gave a speech one time. And what she said is something that I never knew. She said that, Charles, she said that when they attacked us on Bloody Sunday, there was a state trooper coming to actually hit me, and you got in front of them and took the lick. I never knew that, and I can't verify it myself. So many things happened that were indescript in terms of what we all thought about that day. But that is one of the things that she said to me. And she constantly reminds me whenever we have a conversation that I stood up for her. I carried out her mother's wish that day. And that'll always stand with me as being one of the most momentous re-contributions to an educator that I can get. The fact that I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and to take a lick to do what she had asked me to do. So the point is, you never know what, Walt said, you never know what influence you're having on one individual. And that's why each one is so important.
Yeah. One of the great things about getting older is you get to see some of that influence over time that you don't know about when you're younger. You get to see students grow up, get married, take jobs, change the world, all these kinds of things. Mr. Walz, in Selma, there was this incredibly important teachers' march that you mentioned. And that march is so meaningful to Common Power that when we announced the Institute for Common Power in 2022, we did it on the day of the Teachers' March in commemoration of that. It's so meaningful to us. And Luke, you've done a little research for us on the Teachers' March, and Mr. Malden, you were there and experienced the impact of it. So I'd like to ask each of you to say something. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Malden. What did it mean? You've already hinted at this, but I want to ask you a little deeper. What did it mean to have those teachers march? And then, Luke, I'd like to get your comment about one of the leaders, Reverend Reese. Okay.
It meant everything. We were we were doing the right thing, but didn't have the legitimacy to go to be good folks and to go to jail and to be out of school. I was out of school my entire junior year primarily. And that was totally uncharacteristic of the type of person I was. Going to jail was supposed to be a badge of dishonor. And we sort of made that a badge of honor. Being not going to school for almost a year was the last thing that I could conceive and my family prepared me for, but I was doing that. And when the teachers decided to march, I was flabbergasted. These were the people we respected the most. They were the top of our community. They knew us all. One of the things that I think that roots Governor Walz is that he was from a small town. Just like him being a teacher, all of my teachers knew me. They knew my mother and they knew my father. I was I was the last of 7 kids.
Hmm.
You know, my sister Tommy, who was the third girl, was skipped twice, so they had an expectation. They knew us and they had an expectation for those that they knew well. And they had that type of expectation for me. So because they expected me to do more, I was aware of the fact that I had to do more. I they probably made me better because they expected more from me. And back again to teachers, like when you expect more from students, you get more from students. But that that was the subtle inspiration I got from them. They expected more from me, and that's what I got. And I think that that's what uh, is the essence of what it means to be a great teacher. The fact that, like Celestia said, patience and I use the word love, and that's what my teachers gave us. And also, you know what? Uh, and I don't know if teachers still have that, but what they saw that education being the most important tool that they could give to us in terms of improving the race. So they didn't become educators because they want to be teachers. They want to be educators because they wanted to have an influence in making us all better. And that's what a Walz is talking about. And that's why it's important that a person like him become vice president.
Thank you. Luke, can you tell us a little bit about the leadership of that?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Mr. Charles, for, bringing us back to love. I think that's, we don't talk about that often enough. I think that's at the core of a lot of teachers' purpose. Yeah, it's this really authentic, like genuine care and love for their students in their rooms. We don't teach, I'm a history teacher. I don't teach history. I teach young people. And I think you remind us that that's important, right? That we center our students. One of the leaders of the Selma Teachers March was a gentleman named Reverend F.D. Reese, Frederick Douglass Reese. F.D. Reese was a science teacher, if I recall correctly. Mr. Charles can probably confirm.
He wasn't there. He never went to
Math.
school.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was too busy at the SNCC training.
He was my 7th grade teacher.
Okay, that's just incredible. He was also the leader of the Selma City Teachers Association. This was 120 or 125 member local teachers union in Selma. And FD Reese organized the educators to march on January 22nd, 1965. And 105 of the 125, I think that's the right number, signed on to march, an incredibly high number. They were so committed to this. And a couple didn't march because they were spouses of others marching, and there were a couple that had other things that they had to prioritize. But still, to get over 100, 80% plus of your membership to participate in something like that is really incredible. And it's also a reminder of the role that labor unions and public school unions are still playing today. The NEA, the AFT. There's a lot of really important work that they're doing to push back in our contemporary moment that rests on the foundation built by teachers in that moment. And I think it's really important for us to make that through line connection to their organizing. After the march, FD Reese said that everybody marched after the teachers march because teachers have more influence than they ever dreamed in their communities. Teachers have more influence than they ever dreamed. And Governor Walz is echoing that in his speeches. He's said it a couple of times now, but he's talking about not underestimating teachers because teachers are powerful actors. They're not passive. They have a place in advocating for their students beyond just the 4 walls of their classroom. FD Reese and the Selma City teachers did that in 1965. Teachers have done it since and are doing it now. And so much so that one of us has been elevated to the potential vice presidency of the United States. And I think that's a call to all of us to remember that, our boots can march beyond those 4 walls and have to. They have to for our students. They have to for our profession, for our place in this society as professionals, as holders of knowledge that are valued, as contributors to maintaining a democracy. All of that, I think, is built on the foundation of those educators in Selma in 1965, who marched weeks before Bloody Sunday, and had the courage to do that at a time that, it really could have cost them everything, as Mr. Charles reminded us.
Celestria, I have found in my own life that even though I'm no longer employed by a educational organization, but I used to work at the University of Washington, that I just can't kick the identity of like, I'm a teacher, right? I'm a professor, I'm an educator, whatever. And I'm wondering, although you're no longer employed by a formal educational school or school district, you're employed by Common Power now, which sits distinctly outside of those institutions so that we can make a difference in our society. But I'm wondering how that set of identity characteristics carries and informs you in the work that you're doing with us and just generally.
I think so much of the work that we do is so rooted into teachers and in education and in teaching that although I did leave the classroom and it was a hard decision that I made, it was something that I now see how much teachers have an influence on everything that we do, or how much education truly, like how powerful education is inside the classroom and outside the classroom, because it's not just what we teach the students, but it's how we educate the community too. And I see it as I have more power, more influence to talk to more of like how I teach the history, how I taught it to my students, and it changes now because when I interact with people just on a daily, I can talk to them about the history. I feel like I'm teaching people every day. Yes, I made a high school program here down in Selma, which is called Scholars of Motions, which I love. And we talk about the history, especially with them being here in Selma. I talk about how the city should uplift them and how it does uplift them and the history that sits with that. But even just interacting with people on a daily, we are always teaching people. And I'm very honored to work for this organization and have education as such a root to what we do, because education is what changes the world. And as we educate people every day, we're changing people every day. So education is at the forefront of it all. And whether you're in the teacher, whether you have an influence in some type of way, if you're educating people of the history, if you're constantly learning about history and how the Voting Rights Act affected us, the Civil Rights Act affected us, how American history is constantly repeating, and also how we can change it. Education is an everyday thing that, although not in the classroom, it's just as powerful.
Yeah, I want to head into the last part of this episode. And my cup is being filled here, folks. I think I'm too cool. That's what I think to like be inspired by the fact that Tim Walz is a teacher, or that you all are passionate about your teachers, or Mr. Charles, you can tell us about your favorite teacher at this point. But I'm not that cool. We know that. We know I'm not that cool. And so I'm inspired. I'm fired up. And they call us to action too. That's what teachers, I think, do, is they not only educate. Really good teachers also say, you're here, we're teaching you how to think. Now you need to do something. Michelle Obama's speech on Tuesday night, do something. All right, do something. And at Common Power, under the leadership of Dr. Terry Ann Scott, we have a through line phrase: education to action. Had those teachers marched in 1965, or had they taught about civil rights and the fight for racial justice, which undoubtedly they were doing, and not taken action, then it wouldn't have been as powerful. When they took action, they called other people to take action and validated that action. So the reality is Tim Walz took action and ran for Congress. He did. He ran for Congress. Luke, you have made a decision to step outside of the classroom to work at Common Power. That's a decision. That's action. Celestia, you have moved to Alabama to do this work. That's decision. That's an action. Mr. Charles, it goes without saying, the marches and the work you all did was all about the action. All right. It was all about the action. There was a great football player here in Seattle called Marshawn Lynch. Wasn't that his phrase, Luke? All about the action?
Yeah, something like that.
Thanks. I probably don't have it exactly right, right?
I don't, yeah. But he was certainly all about the action. And he lived those values too. He still is. He's somebody who has taken his mantle and is advocating for community. So yeah.
Right. He comes out of Oakland, and maybe there's
Exactly.
that's that history back there, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so Tim Walz last night finished his time with a kind of minute-long call to action. And it was Teacher Walz, it was Coach Walz, it wasn't political Congress member Walz, it was teacher/coach Walz. And he called us to action, which has been, to me, the theme of the entire convention, all right? When Hillary Clinton spoke, she called us to action. Work harder than we've ever worked. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, do something, take action. Last night, Walz, take action. That's what we are as an organization that takes action. And I'm going to play that clip to close here. But Mr. Charles, I'm wondering if you have a piece or a thought about that essentiality of taking action.
You know, David, my basic impulse in life is not to be an activist. You know, that's not. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that I don't take action. It just means that, like, I'm an activist because I've had no choice. I sort of see the world as it is. You know, let me tell you my first really deep experience with becoming an activist. In 1966, maybe, I was in New York City at a anti-war demonstration. And my brother was in Vietnam as a soldier. So I was very conflicted. On one hand, I didn't support the war, but on the other hand, I supported my brother. And so I was between a rock and a hard place deciding what I want to do. And what I found is that there were people on one side of the street supporting on the sidewalk, supporting in the street, supporting the war. I mean, supporting the anti-war effort, and people on the sidewalk jeering and castigating them. And at that point, I had a great realization is that you have to choose one way or the other all the time in life. And that decision to become an anti-war advocate sort of solidified my civil rights bona fides in terms of, like, I had no choice but to do what's right whenever that situation came up. And like I said, I'm a reluctant activist, but like I'm compelled to be an activist, not because of attitude, but because of you're confronted with right and wrong, and every situation you're called to make a decision. Where do I stand on this issue? And being a reluctant activist, that's why not because I'm courageous or bold or brave or anything else, or I've got the right perspective, because I deal with those issues on a daily basis. It's always what is the right thing to do right now.
It's, in Dr. King's words, it's always the right time to do the right thing, right? Let's hear some more from Tim Walz here as we close it up. This is his last minute from last night. This is a teacher. I can hear the teacher voice. I can hear the coach voice. I can see it in my own mind's eye, the coach giving this kind of a pep talk to teams that I've played on.
You know, you might not know it, but I haven't given a lot of big speeches like this. But I have given a lot of pep talks. So let me Let me finish with this, team. It's the fourth quarter. We're down a field goal, but we're on offense and we've got the ball. We're driving down the field. And boy, do we have the right team. Kamala Harris is tough. Kamala Harris is experienced, and Kamala Harris is ready. Our job for everyone watching is to get in the trenches and do the blocking and tackling. 1 inch at a time, 1 yard at a time, 1 phone call at a time, 1 door knock at a time, 1 $5 donation at a time. Look, we got 76 days. That's nothing. There'll be time to sleep when you're dead. We're gonna leave it on the field. You know,
Hey, David, he has it.
What's up, Mr. Charles?
That guy has it. You know, like you said, the times pick the right people at the right time, and that's when you know you're gonna win.
Celestia, Luke, last thought.
I love that. I love that clip. As a student athlete in me, and I coached basketball for a little bit too. It just that spoke to me so much because he's so relatable, and Mr. Charles, I messed up my words. Mr. Charles, I get this quote from you is that it's the ordinary people who do extraordinary things. And I think of him as being a teacher, as being a veteran, as being a coach. He represents us so well, and him relating in that way, the football, right? Like the patriotism in me is just go through the roof. The student athlete in me is through the roof. I love it. And I'm powered up, and I'm so engaged, and I'm excited to bring this to my students who I even work with Scholars in Motion and more, because this is what we do. This is what teachers can influence. These are what teachers can do. Never estimate a teacher. I love it.
Luke?
Yeah, I'd run through a brick wall for that guy. You could see. Yeah, I love that they brought some of his former players on stage as just a way of introducing him, because I can imagine being in that locker room and running out of the tunnel with your hair on fire after listening to him get you ready. What he said there is so important, because it's just like in football, it's a reminder that everybody's got to be pulling in the same direction for it to work, and you don't have to do more than your part. That's it. You've got to just do your part. And that line about that, make that phone call, knock that door, make that $5 donation, that's your part. If you can do more, do more. If you can make more than one call or knock more than one door or give more than $5, then that's your part. But just do your part. Teams win when everybody's pulling in the same direction, and that message, I think, is the right one for right now, for the now 75 days we have left. Let's just keep pulling hard together.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to be on this team. It's great. I love his line. I don't know why it gets to me so deep, but his line where he says, "We can sleep when we're dead." All right. It's just gets me. So thank you all. Thanks so much for this. We got 75 days. Is that what you said, Luke? 75 now?
Yeah, he said 76 yesterday, so I'm not great at math, but that's the best I got.
All right. Let's go. Thank you all, Mr. Charles, Luke, Celestia. Thanks for today. All right. Let's go.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.